Hello and welcome to TransForm Tuesday. I'm Dave McCormick, VP of Product Management here at Alpha Software, and I'm pleased to be joined by Sarah Mitchell, our Director of Customer Success. So today on Alpha TransForm, we are going to be talking about the onSubmit events and the onSubmit actions and workflows that are built into Alpha TransForm. So let's go ahead and put this into perspective. We've shown in lots of different webinars and stuff, ways that you can build forms to collect information, often on a mobile device, but now possible with the web filler, and how to analyze that information, both export it and build dashboards out of it, use the management consoles, do searches and all kinds of things. But after you've collected the data and you've analyzed the data, then what do you do with it? So it doesn't just have to go into a big black hole. What you want to do is you want to act on that data, of course. You want to do something with it. And today we're going to talk about the 8 things that Alpha TransForm can do out of the box when you submit data to Alpha TransForm. And these are all conditional actions, meaning that you can do them under circumstances. You can mix and match these actions, and you can define the actions multiple times and set conditions on each of those instances. So let's just go through the list real quick. The first one, send email, is probably the most obvious and certainly the most easy to set up. When a form is submitted, you can automatically mail that information to one or more recipients. And the data can be in Excel, JSON, or formatted as HTML. The next is the report, which is harder to set up, but gives you a great deal of control. So when a form is submitted, you can send a formatted report to one or more email recipients. And you have great control over the appearance and the format of the data. You have control over to whom the reports are being sent. You can include it as a PDF form. You can control the page size and a lot of other things as well. Sorry about that. Microsoft Excel decided to update itself there. All right, so and you can make it look like existing paper forms that you already have. Like you can have, if you have an invoice that you already use or a special kind of report, you can design it to look like that. The next step is the webhook. So when a form is submitted, TransForm can make a call to an API endpoint and pass in the data that's collected. This data can be sent. This data is sent to JSON format, and it allows you to share your data with systems that you already use. And this is kind of how our Zapier integration works, which I'll talk about a little bit at the end. Next thing you can do is you can send data to a SQL database. So when a form is submitted, TransForm can connect to a SQL database and put that form data into a table in that database. TransForm is compatible with a wide range of SQL backends, including SQL Server, MySQL, MariaDB, Oracle, Postgres, and many more. You can also send an SMS message so that when a form is submitted, you can automatically send a text message. And you can do this based on a condition. So for example, if a worker in the field finds something that should be promptly escalated to a supervisor, you can do that with a TransForm and have it send out an SMS message to that supervisor. The next one is a little advanced. It's set values in user fields, and basically Alpha TransForm forms have in its data structure, it's a little technical here, it has 5 what we call top level user fields. These are fields that are not encoded in, well, they are encoded in JSON, but they are top level fields. And behind the scenes happen to be stored in TransForm as top level fields. The practical offshoot of that is that it allows you to perform some searches and queries a lot faster. This could be helpful if you're dealing with large numbers of records and you want to look at them in the dashboard or something like that. You can save yourself a little bit of processing time by using those fields, and they can be used for other reasons as well. Speaking of which, we have made an improvement. I'll get to the other 2 in a second, but we have made an improvement to the speed of our onSubmit events. Because when you define the onSubmit events, it used to be that when you submitted the record on your mobile device, it would wait for the onSubmit events to complete. Now we've made an adjustment to the code so that when you're using your handheld device, or even I believe on the web filler as well, and you submit your data, basically it hands off that job to Alpha, and then it gives back control to the handheld device. So really you get a snappier, sort of better response, even if you have lots of OnSubmit events set up. All right, back to the last two, which is dispatch and Routiform. We've talked about dispatches recently, but sometimes a form needs the attention of multiple people. So maybe one person fills out one part of the form, but then it needs to be passed along to another worker to fill out another part of the form. And you can do that with TransForm. Once you've filled out your portion, it can be submitted and it can be automatically routed to another user. And last but not least, and in fact, this is a new one for us, is the ability to save a form to storage. So once a form is saved, TransForm can export that data to Excel, JSON, or formatted HTML, and it can place the resulting file in Dropbox, or it can use another storage option. Right now, Dropbox is the one that we support, and more will be on the way. You can also, from there, you can then send that link or email that link to someone who needs to send the form. So instead of sending the form data over, you're just sending a link to a file which contains that form, which is sort of a more modern way of passing information along. And in addition to all of these options, Alpha TransForm also integrates with Zapier, which is a third-party service that lets you connect TransForm to hundreds of other popular systems, maybe thousands of other popular systems. And we've done a few TransForm Tuesdays on that, which you can find on our YouTube channel if you are interested. So let's talk about the OnSubmit events. How do we get these things set up? Well, the most basic way, not the easiest way, but the most basic way is done right here in Alpha TransForm in TransForm Central. And in TransForm Central, if you go to the Home tab and you move down to Define OnSubmit Events, you will see that you can define some JSON. And in this JSON that we've defined here is a send email action. So when a delivery form, so a form ID called delivery, and it's a type of form that I made, is submitted, it's going to send an email to me. It's going to have the subject proof of delivery. Its send format is going to be HTML. So that lets TransForm know how to format it when it gets to me. And that's what you have to do. Now, setting up JSON is a little bit complicated and it's easy to make mistakes. Although we do have it nicely documented here in our documentation system for TransForm. If you do a search simply for OnSubmit, you'll find this page. And it shows you the various actions that you can do with the OnSubmit event and what the parameters are that you need to set up in the JSON. But there is an easier way, and that is to use our companion product, Alpha Anywhere, which you can get and use for free. If you already are familiar with Alpha Anywhere, you can find the tool for building these OnSubmits right here in the Tools menu. You go down to More, TransForm Utilities, Builder for TransForm OnSubmit. Okay, so I'm going to go now to the next page and just sort of show you what that process might look like. You could send an email, a report, call a live webhook, all the actions that I showed you just a minute ago. But let's go ahead and dive in, and I'm going to show you this for real. So I'm going to pop over to my remote desktop. And we're going to begin here at the Alpha Software webpage. Now, on this webpage, if you need to get Alpha Anywhere, this is the place to come. So you could just simply go up to the Platform section, and then where it says Alpha Anywhere, just hit Start Now, and that lets you download the Alpha Anywhere installer, and you can run and install the Alpha Anywhere Community Edition, which is a free edition for you to use and develop in. Alpha Anywhere basically works by letting you build out applications that get deployed to a server or to Alpha Cloud. And if you're interested in that, take a look at it. But you can also just use this tool to help you with your TransForm work. I'm going to take a break just for a second because it looks like there may be a question. No, feature request. All right, I'll get that to the end. If there are questions, I'd just like to remind everyone you can type those questions into the GoToWebinar questions box of the GoToWebinar control panel. All right, so once you've downloaded Alpha Anywhere, I'm going to open it up here. You're going to go to the Tools menu. First, you're going to create a project, but you're going to then go to the Tools menu, and you're going to go down here to More and Transform Utilities. And then you're going to go to Builder for Alpha Transform onSubmit events. Okay, so looking here, you'll see that this area is blank. And that means that I have no actions yet set up. But this is an important thing. So keep this in mind. When you first open up this Genie, what you're going to want it to do is you're going to want to connect it to your Alpha Transform account. And you're going to do that by supplying an API key. And you do that by clicking on the fetch definition from Transform Central. What this does is it takes the JSON data and it brings it into this Genie, into this property sheet, if you will, and parses it out for you and lets you edit it. So if you recall, back here in my browser over in Safari, which I think is here, whoops, let's go over to, oh, sorry, I had it in my PowerPoint. I'm tricking myself. Okay, let's back up to here. Here's my action. So this is actually right now defined in my account, my send email thing. So I have one action. So I'm going to go back into Alpha Anywhere, and I'm going to say fetch definition from Transform Central. It's going to ask me for an API key. So where did I get that API key? I got that API key over here in my Alpha Transform account. So back at Transform Central, I went to transform.alphasoftware.com. And I went down into developer, went onto the home tab, and then I went down into developer options, and I chose get API key. Now, from what I need right now, I only need read permissions on this key, but there are a few of the onSubmit events that do need read and write permissions. Some of those, as you might guess, might be routing a form to another user because you're going to need to change the assignment field. And the other one that you'd need to have read and write permissions for would be if you are writing to those 5 user-defined fields. For this, though, today we can get away with just a read-only API key. So basically, by clicking that and I click Get API Key, it'll create an API key for me that I can copy and I can paste into Alpha Anywhere. So I've already pasted that in, and so I'm going to click Fetch Definition, and you'll see that it has found my email that I had defined earlier. And if I want to take a look at that action, I can just click Edit Action, and it shows me how I set up that action. So this action is really easy to set up, this email one. You just need to give it the send to address, the subject that you'd like to appear in the subject line of the email, the format, whether it's JSON, HTML, or Excel, and then the form ID is the name of your form ID when you created it in TransForm. And if you click on this little smart button here, and I say select, it'll grab a list of all of the forms that I've created in my account. And in this case, I chose the delivery form. So that's all it took to set up that. And now every time an email, every time a delivery form is submitted, an email will go to my email box with all of the data that's contained in there. Now you'll notice it doesn't give you a lot of control over a lot of things here. For example, I have to hard code that send to address. If I wanted to read it from a field, that would be kind of cool, but I can't do that with this simple send email action. The same is true with this proof with the subject line. So I had to hard code it to this, but I might have wanted to personalize that subject line. And I'll show you how you can do that. You'll do that using a report. The format, these are all fine, except I don't really have control over what the HTML looks like. It's just going to take a standard rendition, which is good enough, I'd say, in many cases. And so of these 3 things, if you wanted to have more control over them, and you could instead create a report. But a report is trickier. So I'm just going to give you a little warning. I'm going to show you what it would take to set up a report, but I'm not going to set up a report myself at the moment. So I'm going to do this by clicking the Add Action button. And I'm going to click Report, and I'm going to click OK. And now I'm going to say Edit Action. And you'll notice there's a lot more fields to fill out. Okay. But what you'll find when you're filling out these fields is that instead of simple hard-coded values, What you're specifying here instead are JSON snippets, and those JSON snippets will return a value that fills out each one of these properties. So if I wanted to know to whom I wanted to send, say, this report or this email, I could, for example, say, send it to the email field that I have defined in my form, for example. Or I could say something like, oh, is this an invoice? If the invoice is above $1,000, send it not only to accounts payable, but send it to the purchasing manager for verification, something like that. So you have a lot of flexibility, like from whom it's being sent, what the subject is. These can all be calculated using JavaScript. Now, if JavaScript is scary to you, and it is to some people, it doesn't have to be very hard JavaScript. I'm going to show you a couple of examples in which we've made that easier. So let's take send to, for example. I'm going to tap on send to, and let me just open up this window a little bit better so that we can see it. And this is just a JavaScript comment. And it tells you that what you need to do basically is set a variable called result equal to the name of the email address that you would like to send it to, or in the case of multiple email addresses, set it to a comma delimited list of email addresses, just like that. And then later on down here, they said, oh, okay, I'd like to, let's say you wanted to make it a little bit more complicated. Their example here is only send, or if the email is closed, you're going to, form data email. I'm sorry, I'm missing the point of this example. So never mind what I have to say on that one. Sorry, we'll remove that. But let me show you something really quick. Let's say you wanted to send this, set this up so that it sent an email to a particular email address in your form. All you would do is you could first delete all this out if you wanted to. And down here, there are some couple little shortcut helper tools. So this one says insert var result equals, and that means it'll literally type that out. So if I wanted to send it to myself, I would just do dave@alphasoftware.com, and bam, I've just written some JavaScript. See, that wasn't so hard. Now let's see if my JavaScript is any good. I'm going to say test code. And the first thing it's going to ask me is what data should I use? I'll just use the form data that's built in. So I'm going to click test code. And it says your code returned this value, dave@alphasoftware.com. So I see that it worked. So this is good. If you wrote some more complicated JavaScript in here, you could test it out before you went any further. All right, so the other thing you can do is, let's say I didn't want to hard code it there. I wanted to set it to a field value. So I'm going to say insert transform form field. And it says I haven't specified any sample data. So I'm going to need to go back and do that. Hang on a second. And I can do that on the previous screen. Cancel. Yes. Define sample data. And to do that, I first have to choose my form. So let me go ahead and choose the form. And let's choose a form that I know has got an email address in it. So something like, I don't think my delivery one has it, but I think maybe this one, this invoice does. So I'm going to click OK. And I'm going to say OK. And now I'm going to say define sample data. And now I'm going to say get the fields from the form. Oh, email is one of them. That's great. And zoom sample data. It may be a case that I don't have any. Oops, I may not have any sample data defined for this form. I'm sorry about that. Actually, I may. Oh, yeah, I do. Sorry, I had to drill down. Let's grab this one right here. Okay. So now I've got the sample data, and I'm just using this now as an example. And so the email is the field that I'm going to use. I'm going to say, okay, I've gotten my sample data. And I'm going to say, send it to, we're going to delete all this out. Insert form field, oops. Insert var result equals, and then I can insert my form field. And there's my form field, form data.email. And now I have written the JavaScript that I need. And again, I can test my code. test code. And this one said alpha siftware. I guess I must have typed it in wrong when I did my, yeah, I did when I did my sample data. So that's how you define basically all of the properties back here. Cancel, yes. Not just send to, but send from, subject, send format, all of that, all the way down to the template types and stuff like that. Now, the good news is if this looks complicated, we are about to make it much easier. We are taking these onSubmit events and we are moving them into TransForm properly. And we're going to make these a lot easier to set up using other types of genies. But as of today, this is the way that you set it up. And it is actually a really, really powerful system. So I believe that's all I wanted to cover today. We talked about the onSubmit events, how to set them up, how to get Alpha Anywhere set up to work with your account, and how to build out these events. There's one last thing. When I'm done here and I close out of my onSubmit event, it's going to prompt me to save my definition back to TransForm Central. I'm not going to do that because I started to make some changes that would break things. But when I do that, it will then go ahead and move my data back here into my onSubmit event section. Whoops, confirm login. Right there. Cool. So feature requests, TransForm Central, can you export an email but have it send an HTML copy of, say, the dashboard, and can it be zipped up to avoid getting trapped in corporate spam folders? That is a really terrific request. Yes, we'll absolutely make a note of that right now. Cool. Are there any other questions or comments? Doesn't look like it. Well, hey, folks, thank you very much for attending. Thanks, Sarah, for standing by. Hope you have a great week and hope to see you at our next TransForm Tuesday. Until then, take care and stay well. Bye-bye.